What if I told you the reason you feel stuck isn't because of your problems? It's because of your focus. Most people live their entire lives staring at what's broken, waiting for something outside of them to change. They talk about the stress, the unfair boss, the economy, the past, and without realizing it, they become experts at what's wrong. The more they describe the problem, the more power the problem gains. It's like watering weeds and wondering why the flowers never grow. The book, Focus on Yourself and Work Hard in Silence, opens with a truth that sounds simple but feels radical. Your life begins to change the moment you stop feeding your problems and start feeding your solutions. Because whatever you focus on expands. If you feed worry, you'll find more to worry about. If you feed action, you'll find momentum. In this video, we'll unpack how the author teaches you to reclaim your mental steering wheel, how to stop letting emotions and excuses drive your day, and start focusing on what actually moves your life forward. These are not abstract theories. They're psychological shifts backed by modern behavioral science, and they've changed how investors, athletes, and entrepreneurs build calm success. Chapter 1. Take full responsibility for what happens next. The first and hardest step toward freedom is responsibility. It's uncomfortable because it forces you to stop pointing outward. The author says, from this moment on, your life is your job. Not your parents, not your bosses, not the world's, yours. And that single decision transforms everything. Warren Buffett once told a class of students, the best investment you can make is in yourself. Most people quote that line for motivation. Few notice the accountability inside it. Buffett didn't say, wait until the market changes. He said, start by changing you. Taking responsibility means you stop outsourcing power. You stop blaming traffic for your mood or childhood for your habits. You stop expecting the system to hand you clarity. Blame feels comforting because it lets you be right without being responsible. But as the author writes, blame builds nothing. The moment you trade blame for ownership, you get your power back. It's not about guilt. It's about control. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater, lost everything early in his career after betting wrong on the economy. He could have blamed luck or clients. Instead, he wrote, I was so wrong that I had to be humble. That humility became the foundation of one of the most successful hedge funds in history. Responsibility doesn't protect you from mistakes. It turns them into raw material for wisdom. When you decide, this is my life and I'm in charge of what happens from here, your brain shifts from passive mode to builder mode. Neuropsychologists call this locus of control, the belief that your choices, not circumstances, create outcomes. People with a strong internal locus tend to earn more, stay healthier, and recover faster from setbacks. Why? Because they don't wait, they act. The author's advice is brutally clear. Stop explaining why you're not where you want to be. Explanations drain energy. Execution restores it. You can't fix a problem by reciting it. Growth begins when you stop defending your pain and start designing your path. Every time you say, it's hard, ask yourself, hard compared to what? Because difficulty isn't a reason, it's data. Steve Jobs once said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. Responsibility is deciding to keep drawing dots even when you don't see the picture yet. It's getting up each morning and choosing effort over excuse. No one's coming to rescue you from procrastination. That's your mission. And that's not a burden, it's power. Taking ownership also means confronting truths you've been avoiding. What habits keep you stuck? What patterns keep repeating because you refuse to face them? The author calls this mirror work. It's when you stop romanticizing your potential and start auditing your behavior. Every builder, whether Buffett with numbers or Oprah with influence, starts here, facing the mirror, not the market. Here's the irony. Responsibility looks heavy, but it lightens your life. When you accept that you're in charge, you stop waiting. You stop negotiating with laziness. You start acting from choice, not circumstance. That's when momentum begins, because motivation is temporary, but responsibility is renewable. It refills itself every time you follow through. Let's ground this in practice. 1. Each morning, write one line. Today, I'm responsible for, and finish the sentence. It could be your mindset, your schedule, your reaction. Writing it makes ownership visible. 2. At night, ask, what did I actually control today? You'll notice your confidence grows not from praise, but from proof. 3. Replace I can't with I won't. That one-word swap ends the illusion of helplessness. Responsibility isn't perfection. You'll still fail. But the difference is, you'll fail forward. Thomas Edison tested over 1,000 light bulb filaments. When asked how it felt to fail so many times, he said, I didn't fail. I found 1,000 ways that didn't work. That's what ownership sounds like. The author ends this first lesson with a challenge. Stop describing your problems longer than you work on them. The people who rise are not luckier, they're more accountable. Every small decision, every honest self-conversation, every act of follow-through compounds into something unstoppable. So before we move on, remember this line. Your life won't change when things get easier. It'll change when you get stronger. Strength begins with ownership. In the next section, we'll explore what happens after you claim that power, the art of training your focus so progress can finally grow. Because taking responsibility gives you control. Mastering focus gives you direction. If this message already shifted how you think, subscribe for more mind-changing book insights, because awareness without action is just another distraction. Train your focus so progress can grow. Most people don't fail from lack of effort. They fail from divided effort. The author argues that your life quietly follows your focus the way a shadow follows your body. Aim your attention at what's missing, and your days will organize themselves around scarcity. Aim it at what moves the needle, and even small actions start compounding. This isn't motivational fluff. It's behavioral science. Daniel Kahneman showed how an anxious brain narrows to threat detection. Stare at the problem long enough, and your mind will mistake discomfort for danger. That's why the same week can feel impossible or productive, depending on where your eyes live. Focus isn't a personality trait, it's a practice. The book's second lesson is simple and surgical. Train your attention like a muscle, or you'll rent it out to the loudest bidder. Think of attention as the most valuable currency in the modern economy. Tech platforms are billion-dollar machines designed to harvest it. If you don't set a budget, they'll spend it for you. Steve Jobs was brutal about this. He killed good ideas to make room for great ones. Focus is about saying no, he told his team. It's not romantic to say no to most things, but it's the only way anything meaningful gets built. The author offers a reframe I love. Your focus is a camera lens, wide angle for reflection, telephoto for execution. You need both, but never at the same time. Most people try to plan and perform simultaneously, producing the mental equivalent of trying to read sheet music while sight reading a new piece on stage. You can do it, but you'll do both badly. Here's how to apply this with a blend of Stoic clarity and practical systems. 1. Run a daily focus audit in 90 seconds. Each morning, write 3 lines. If I only did one meaningful thing today, it would be X. The friction that will stop me is Y. At 2:00 p.m., I'll do Z if I'm off track. This converts vague intention into a pre-committed recovery plan. James Clear would call this a when-then implementation intention. When I drift, then I do this. You're building rails for your attention so willpower isn't constantly taxed. 2. Build a progress block instead of a to-do list. A to-do list is where priorities go to die. A progress block is a 60-minute protected window for your single highest leverage task. No tabs. Phone in another room, door closed. The rule is monk-like. During the block, either do the task or stare at the wall. Boredom trains the brain not to reach for dopamine snacks. Cal Newport calls the enemy attention residue, the micro lag that happens when you context switch. Your progress block starves residue and feeds momentum. 3. Protect your inputs like an investor protects principal. Morgan Housel writes that the most powerful force in finance is compounding. Inputs compound too. Garbage in, chaotic attention out. Ask, what 5 sources most shape your thinking? Trim the bottom 2. Replace them with 1 book that stretches you and 1 long-form conversation with a person you respect. A poor mind spends attention to look busy. A rich mind invests attention to buy freedom. 4. Use the Buffett 25-5 filter. Legend says Buffett once asked a pilot to list his 25 career goals, circle the top 5, and then avoid the other 20 at all costs. Why? Because the seductive middle is where focus goes to die. Make your own 25-5 each quarter. You'll feel a loss when you say no to good goals. Honor that grief. Focus requires a series of clean goodbyes. 5. Practice the Stoic dichotomy of control in real time. When your day goes sideways, ask 1 fast question. Is this controllable? If yes, act within the next 5 minutes. If no, cut the mental loop and move your body. Walk, stretch, breathe. Marcus Aurelius would approve. You have power over your mind, not outside events. In practice, that power is a trained redirect. 6. Design a physical focus cue. When Ray Dalio's emotions ran hot, he wrote to cool them. You can create a cue: noise-canceling headphones, a specific chair, a lamp turned on only during deep work. Pavlov trained dogs. You can train your brain to associate a simple ritual with concentration. Over time, the ritual becomes a switch. 7. Run the 5 rule for mental clutter. If it won't matter in 5 years, don't give it more than 5 minutes of rumination. Set a timer and actually stop. This interrupts the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency for unfinished worries to loop. You're not ignoring reality. You're refusing to pay compound interest on trivia. 8. Build micro sprints for courage. The author warns, when fear shows up, focus shatters. Naval Ravikant says, leverage amplifies judgment. Fear distorts it. Use a 10-minute micro sprint anytime a task feels emotionally heavy. Start the timer. Do 1 tiny piece. Fear shrinks under motion the way a shadow shrinks at noon. Movement is the solvent of dread. 9. Create an evening focus subtraction ritual. People try to focus by adding hacks. Masters focus by removing friction. Each night, list 3 things that cluttered your attention. 1 you'll eliminate. Unsubscribe, delete, delegate. 1 you'll automate. Calendar block, recurring order, template. 1 you'll batch. Emails at 4 p.m., not all day. Subtraction reveals the signal. 10. Install Kaizen for attention. Kaizen, continuous improvement, beats heroic spurts. Don't chase a perfect focus day. Improve your focus by 1% daily. Read 1 page without your phone. Do 1 meeting as a walking meeting. Protect 1 meal as no screen. It's humble, unsexy, and unstoppable. Metaphor time. Your mind is a garden. Thoughts are seeds. Attention is water. Environment is weather. If you water the weeds, complaints, comparisons, catastrophes, don't be surprised when they take the field. The author's rule is ruthless kindness. Water the plant you want to keep. When you catch yourself doom scrolling or replaying a slight, pause and ask, is this watering my plant? If not, put the phone face down, stand up, and give 120 seconds to your highest value task. You are not your first impulse. You are your second decision. Here's a compact weekly system to make all of this stick. The Focus Operating Rhythm. Sunday 20-minute preview. Define your 1 big outcome, OBO, for the week, plus 3 supporting tasks. Make your 25/5 visible. Daily progress block. Same hour each weekday. If life blows it up, honor a 30-minute backup block. Consistency beats intensity. 2 p.m. Course correct. Set an alarm titled Win the Afternoon. Ask, what 1 action would make today unambiguously productive? Do that before everything else. Evening subtraction. Eliminate, automate, batch 1 item. 10 minutes max. Friday, review. What improved 1%? What still leaks attention? Adjust your environment, not just your intent. Notice the emotion underneath all this. Freedom. A focused day feels lighter. You're not whiplashed by every notification, not dragged by every opinion. You're present. You finish tasks instead of collecting them. And that presence spills into your relationships, your health, your money choices. It's strange. People chase wealth, yet the wealthiest minds I've met are wealthy in attention. They can sit with a problem without flinching, hold a long view without twitching, and say no without apology. That skill compounds into better deals, better conversations, better sleep. A brief word on compassion. Training focus isn't about becoming a productivity robot. It's about building a life where your best work and your best self finally meet. Some days you'll drift. Great. Catch it sooner next time. As Carol Dweck would remind us, treat lapses as information, not identity. 2 practical closeouts for the U.S. audience, juggling career, family, and finances. Money, focus. Automate investments the day your paycheck arrives. Remove decision fatigue. Let dollars follow values by default. Peter Lynch said, far more money has been lost by investors preparing for corrections than has been lost in the corrections themselves. That's an attention lesson, not just a market one. Health focus protects sleep like it's an index fund. Without it, your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of focus, goes offline. You can't out-discipline a dysregulated nervous system. In total, the author's point is blunt and beautiful. Progress grows where focus goes. Guard it like an asset. Train it like a craft. Honor it with systems, not mood. And when you drift, come back again and again until returning becomes who you are. Now, let's explore the next idea. Acting before fear inflates your problems into monsters. Because once your attention is aimed, the fastest way to keep it from scattering is movement. If this helped you sharpen your attention and quiet the noise, subscribe for more mind-changing book insights, where wisdom turns into systems you can actually live. Here's the paradox of fear. It never arrives fully formed. It grows in silence, fed by hesitation, watered by imagination. The author says, the longer you wait, the louder fear gets. Most people don't realize this until their dreams have already been shrunk to fit inside their comfort zone. The truth is, fear doesn't stop you because it's strong. It stops you because you let it mature. You'll hand it time, and time turns whispers into monsters. Think of every moment of hesitation as a seed. The moment you think, maybe I'll start tomorrow, that's a seed. And like weeds, fear doesn't need perfect conditions, it just needs your inaction. The author's message here is brutally simple. Move early or pay double later. Because every second you spend rehearsing what could go wrong is energy stolen from what could go right. This isn't just motivational philosophy, it's neuroscience. The amygdala, your brain's alarm center, activates the moment uncertainty enters the scene. The longer you sit in uncertainty without acting, the more cortisol floods your body, and soon, even a small step feels impossible. It's not that the problem grew, it's that your perspective shrank. The smartest people on earth still feel fear. Warren Buffett admitted that even at 80, he gets nervous before a major investment. But what separates the bold from the blocked is simple. They move while afraid. Steve Jobs once said, "Real artists ship." He meant that perfectionism is just fear dressed up as refinement. Movement, not mastery, builds momentum. Ray Dalio learned this the hard way in 1982. He lost almost everything after betting the economy would crash. It didn't. He was broke, humiliated, and terrified of ever being wrong again. But instead of hiding, he moved. He analyzed what happened, rebuilt his fund, and created the principles framework that later made Bridgewater the world's largest hedge fund. Fear didn't vanish. It became a compass. That's the reframe this chapter demands. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a signal. It's your system saying, here lies something worth doing. Most people misinterpret that signal. They think fear means danger. In truth, it often means direction. Here's how to turn fear from a prison into propulsion. 1. Use the 10-second rule. The moment your mind says, do it later, you count down from 10 and act before you hit 0. It's simple, but it interrupts hesitation before it hardens. Your body moves and the brain follows. Mel Robbins popularized this in the 5-second rule, but ancient Stoics practiced it first. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Stop arguing what a good man should be one." Action over argument, then and now. 2. Shrink the battlefield. When fear feels massive, zoom in until the next move looks small enough to do immediately. Don't think, write a book. Think, write one paragraph. Don't think, start a business. Think, make the first call. That's cognitive chunking, a psychology principle proving that smaller goals deactivate the fear center. You're not fooling yourself. You're training your nervous system to trust movement. 3. Redefine failure as feedback speed. Winners don't have fewer mistakes, they just get feedback faster. Each action teaches you what not to repeat. If you can reframe failure as data collection, you turn emotional pain into intellectual capital. Elon Musk once said, "If things are not failing, you're not innovating enough." So act, fail, adjust, repeat. Progress is iteration disguised as bravery. 4. Name your fear out loud. Fear thrives in ambiguity. When you name it, you drag it into daylight. Say it. I'm afraid of looking stupid. I'm afraid of wasting time. I'm afraid this won't work. Once named, it loses shape. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, imagining the worst so you realize it's survivable. As Seneca said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. 5. Turn fear into a calendar event. Schedule what scares you. If you dread calling an investor, put it at 9 a.m. Thursday and guard that block like surgery. The brain respects what's scheduled. That's why Buffett says, the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. Saying yes to your fear means saying no to delay. 6. Anchor courage with motion, not emotion. You can't feel your way into action. You must act your way into feeling. Emotion follows motion. Ask any athlete. The first sprint is always the hardest. By the second, adrenaline replaces anxiety. The author's wisdom is practical. Don't wait to be ready. Be ready because you started. 7. Replace perfection with precision. Perfection is an excuse disguised as virtue. Precision means acting with clarity about your next small move. You can refine after execution, but you can't refine what doesn't exist. That's why Navy SEALs train on the phrase, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Fear makes you rush or freeze. Precision keeps you moving cleanly. There's also a subtle emotional lesson here. Fear is a liar that uses logic. It says, wait until it's clear. But clarity doesn't come before action. It's the reward of action. A foggy path clears underfoot. If you ever doubt this, remember the first time you learned to drive. You didn't wait until you understood traffic flow, speed physics, and road psychology. You started the engine. It was jerky, awkward, terrifying, and within weeks, your body knew what your brain feared. The same law applies to every ambition. In business, Buffett once bought a struggling textile mill in the 1960s, Berkshire Hathaway. He knew almost nothing about fabrics, but he moved anyway. That small, uncertain step later became the foundation for one of history's greatest investment empires. His secret wasn't certainty, it was courage compounded. The author calls this the momentum law, motion before meaning. Meaning doesn't reveal itself until after you've moved. You can't steer a parked car and you can't redirect a stagnant life. To master this, build the fear to action protocol. Notice the fear cue, heart racing, hesitation, overthinking. Label it, my brain is protecting me, not predicting reality. Act within 30 seconds on a micro step. Reflect afterward, never before. That pattern rewires fear into fuel. Over time, the signal of fear stops meaning danger and starts meaning doorway. Now let's address a myth. Bravery doesn't feel like bravery. It feels like trembling hands and dry mouth. It feels like a racing heart and doubt whispering, what if this goes wrong? Real courage isn't the absence of that feeling. It's the decision to move anyway. In one study from Harvard Business School, researchers found that entrepreneurs who acted earlier, even without full clarity, had a 50% higher survival rate than those who waited to plan perfectly. Why? Because early action generated real feedback. Waiting generated anxiety. So, if fear has been keeping you stuck, remember, fear feeds on delay. Delay feeds on imagination. Imagination turns molehills into mountains. But movement turns mountains back into molehills. You can't think your way to courage. You must live your way into it. Here's your real-world exercise Tonight, write down the one thing you've delayed for weeks. Circle it. Tomorrow morning, take one measurable step toward it before checking your phone. No negotiation, no pep talk, just motion. That step might feel small, but it's tectonic, because the first step is always worth more than the next 10 combined. By the end of this chapter, the message should be burned into your mind. Fear grows in silence. Starve it with motion. Act before fear inflates the problem. Move before your mind builds the wall. And soon you'll realize what every high performer knows. Courage isn't found. It's forged in movement, not meditation. If this part reminded you of something you've been avoiding, write it down. Commit to a step and subscribe for more truth-backed book wisdom that helps you move from thinking to becoming. Setbacks are life's way of testing whether your lessons are theory or truth. Everyone says they want growth until growth demands pain. The author reminds us that what breaks most people isn't the setback itself, but their story about it. We can't control the storm, but we can control the steering. And that single decision, how you react, separates those who spiral from those who rise. Think about it. Every successful person you admire has a highlight reel built entirely on recovery. Buffett lost half his net worth in the 1970s and doubled down. Oprah was fired from her first TV job for being too emotional, then turned that emotion into her brand. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a phenomenon. Same pain, different reaction. That's the theme here. You can't choose what happens, but you can choose what happens next. And that choice, that moment between stimulus and response, is where your real power hides. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, said it best. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That quote isn't just poetic, it's tactical. In that space, your identity is built. The author calls it emotional ownership. It's not pretending everything's okay. It's saying, yes, this hurts. Yes, this wasn't fair, but it's still mine to deal with. Here's how emotional ownership plays out in real life. 1. Create the pause. When things go wrong, your nervous system fires before logic does. Your first instinct is reaction, anger, blame, defense. The key is a micro pause. Literally count one deep breath before speaking, posting, or deciding. That breath interrupts the autopilot of old behavior. It's small, but it rewires control. NFL coach Bill Walsh had a mantra: process over panic. When his 49ers were down by 20, he'd tell players to slow the game down in their minds. That pause was the difference between chaos and comeback. 2. Separate facts from feelings. Write down what happened, just facts. Then write how you feel. Don't let them blur. I lost the client is a fact. I'm worthless is an emotion pretending to be truth. Clarity dissolves catastrophes. Once you strip away emotional exaggeration, most setbacks shrink into solvable problems. 3. Translate pain into pattern. If something keeps going wrong, it's not bad luck. It's a signal. Maybe you overcommit, underprepare, or repeat the same emotional triggers. Every repetition is a lesson you refuse to learn the first time. Patterns persist until they teach you. A simple practice after any major setback: ask, what's the real lesson here? Write one sentence. Keep it somewhere visible. That single reflection will compound faster than any self-help quote. 4. Stop outsourcing your emotions. People will disappoint you. Markets will crash. Friends will misunderstand you. The moment you say they made me feel, you've handed them your remote control. Emotional ownership means you can feel anger without becoming it, sadness without living there, and fear without surrendering to it. Remember, no one can trigger you without your permission. The trigger is external, but the explosion is internal. 5. Practice the 24-hour rule. When something goes wrong, don't make major decisions within 24 hours. Not in business, not in relationships. The limbic brain calms after one sleep cycle. Buffett follows this religiously. He never sends emotional emails. He drafts them, sleeps, rereads them, then deletes 90%. That's not weakness. That's mastery. 6. Reframe setbacks as strength training. You don't build muscle without tension. You don't build character without resistance. A setback is emotional weightlifting. Uncomfortable, but it makes you capable of more load next time. Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it." He wasn't glorifying pain, he was honoring the growth it forges. Every setback is a mirror. It reflects the strength you currently have and the strength you still need to build. 7. Rewrite the narrative in real time. When something painful happens, your brain immediately writes a story. This always happens to me. Catch it, rewrite it. This happened for me to practice clarity. It sounds simple, but neuroplasticity research proves it. Change your inner language, change your emotional outcome. 8. Turn your reaction into your resume. When people describe you, what do they say? Calm under pressure or chaos under stress? The way you respond becomes your reputation. Emotional control is the soft skill that runs the hard world. Employers, investors, partners, they all bet on emotional reliability. Here's the paradox. People chase success to feel powerful. But true power begins when you master your reactions. 9. Replace self-blame with self-honesty. There's a difference. Blame says, "I failed." Honesty says, "I could have done this better." One traps you in shame, the other fuels growth. The author warns, shame freezes improvement, honesty frees it. Ray Dalio calls this radical transparency, the willingness to see yourself clearly without ego. He built an entire company culture around it because feedback only helps the mind brave enough to face it. 10. Build the setback ritual. Every time something goes wrong, follow 3 steps. Breathe. Center the body first. Clarity never arrives in chaos. Frame. Ask, what's mine to learn here? Move. Take one action that proves the setback didn't own you, even if it's small. That ritual converts emotion into evolution. Let's ground this in story. In 1997, Apple was 90 days from bankruptcy. Steve Jobs returned and did something shocking. He killed 70% of Apple's product line. The team panicked. Jobs stayed calm. He said, deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. Within 3 years, Apple went from near death to $5 billion revenue. His reaction to chaos didn't just save a company, it birthed an era. So, what's your Apple moment? What chaos could turn to clarity if you just stopped reacting and started responding? Because that's the crux of this chapter. Your reaction defines your future more than your failure ever will. Most people think emotional control makes you robotic. It doesn't. It makes you strategic. It lets you feel fully, but act wisely. Let's end this part with a quick reflection ritual you can use daily. When you face friction today, A rude email, a delay, a rejection. Pause and ask, what would my higher self do right now? That question lifts you out of the storm and into leadership. In a world addicted to reaction, the calm mind is a superpower. If this idea resonated, if it reminded you that power doesn't come from the event, but from your reaction, subscribe for more book wisdom that turns setbacks into strategies, pain into precision, and reaction into resilience. If you've ever lain awake at night, replaying the same conversation, the same worry, the same what if, you already know what mental quicksand feels like. You think you're solving the problem, but you're just orbiting it. The author calls this loop thinking, the illusion of analysis that produces no action. It feels like effort, but it's really paralysis in disguise. And here's the hard truth. Overthinking isn't intelligence. It's fear wearing a disguise. Smart people often fall for it because their brains are used to finding patterns. But when emotion hijacks logic, the brain starts looping. It's not trying to torture you, it's trying to protect you. It believes that if it keeps running the simulation, you'll find safety. But what you really find is exhaustion. Think of your brain as a web browser. Every what if opens a new tab. After a few hours, the system lags. Not because it's broken, but because you never stop to close anything. Clarity doesn't come from adding new thoughts. It comes from closing unnecessary ones. In this chapter, the author offers something practical: awareness without judgment. The moment you notice the loop, don't attack yourself for it. Simply label it, I'm looping. That single word is the first step toward freedom. Neuroscientist Judson Brewer found that awareness interrupts the habit cycle in the brain. When you notice the loop, you shift activity from the emotional limbic system to the rational prefrontal cortex. In simpler terms, noticing gives your brain back to you. Here's how to break the cycle before it breaks your peace. 1. Use the 3-step awareness protocol. Notice, catch the repetition. Name, say it out loud. I'm looping on this thought. Neutralize, ask, what's new here? If the answer is nothing, stop feeding it attention. That pattern alone can save hours of mental energy. 2. Write to unload, not to explain. Grab a notebook or open your phone's notes app and dump the loop in raw form. No grammar, no censoring. Once it's outside your head, you can see it for what it is: repetitive fear, not real strategy. Psychologists call this externalizing the thought. Once you see it on paper, your brain realizes the loop isn't infinite, it's just ink. 3. Build a thought audit. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what thought wasted the most time today? Write one sentence about it. Then ask, what thought moved me forward? Over time, you'll see your mind's recurring villains, the same insecurities dressed in different costumes. Awareness turns repetition into revelation. 4. Remember, feelings are data, not destiny. Looping happens when you confuse emotion with information. I feel anxious doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your body's energy is looking for direction. Redirect it with movement. Walk, stretch, clean, breathe. Motion interrupts mental inertia. 5. Ask better questions. Your brain loops because it's stuck on bad questions. Why is this happening to me? What if I fail again? Replace them with, what can I do next? Or, what's one thing I can learn from this? New questions reroute old thoughts. This is exactly how Jeff Bezos makes decisions. He calls it the regret minimization framework. He asks, at 80, Will I regret not doing this? That single question snaps him out of analysis paralysis and into action. 6. Don't confuse thinking with progress. Imagine being trapped in a treadmill factory. You're moving constantly, but you're not getting anywhere. That's what overthinking does. It gives you the emotional satisfaction of movement without any actual motion. The cure? Action, no matter how small. Do one concrete thing that moves the situation forward. Send the email, make the call, tidy the space. Thinking creates clarity only when paired with movement. 7. Create a pattern interrupt. When the loop feels uncontrollable, do something sensory. Splash cold water on your face, change rooms, step outside. Physical change forces mental change. Tony Robbins calls this state breaking. The Stoics called it metanoia, a shift in mind through shift in motion. 8. Schedule your worry. Set a literal worry appointment, 10 minutes at 6 p.m. each day to think about whatever's bothering you. Outside that window, you tell your brain, "We'll deal with it later." Research shows that compartmentalizing worry actually decreases anxiety long-term because it teaches the mind that not every concern deserves instant access. 9. Declutter your mental diet. Your inputs feed your loops. Doom scrolling before bed? You're feeding the anxiety algorithm. Arguing online? You're letting other people's chaos rent space in your head. Replace noise with nourishment. One book, one long podcast, one genuine conversation. Clarity is a consequence of cleaner input. 10. Practice mental fasting. Just like your body needs breaks from food, your mind needs breaks from stimulation. No screens for the first 30 minutes after waking and the last 30 minutes before sleep. That small discipline detoxes your attention and lowers the mental noise floor, the baseline level of distraction that fuels loops. Let's anchor this idea in a story. In 2011, Tim Ferriss, best-selling author and investor, revealed that his biggest breakthroughs didn't come from productivity hacks, but from thought detox. After years of constant over-analysis, he started writing morning pages, 3 handwritten pages of whatever came to mind. Within months, his anxiety plummeted, his focus returned, and his business output doubled. He didn't think less, he thought cleaner. That's the heart of this chapter. You can't outthink overthinking. You must outact it, outright it, and outquiet it. Every loop has a breaking point, awareness. So next time your mind starts spinning, catch it, label it, breathe. Do one small action that moves you toward solution, not speculation. And if you forget, remember this rule. A thought repeated without change becomes a belief. A belief repeated without challenge becomes a cage. Break the loop before it becomes your identity. Because mental freedom isn't thinking more, it's thinking better. If this part helped you recognize your mental loops, subscribe for more book wisdom that turns overthinking into awareness, awareness into action, and action into peace. Here's a paradox. The modern world doesn't want you to notice. The faster everything gets, the less people actually think. We react, refresh, respond, but we rarely reflect. We're addicted to speed, allergic to silence. Yet every bad decision you've ever made probably shared one thing in common. You made it too fast. The author's message in this chapter cuts deep. Clarity doesn't come from chaos, it comes from calm. When something goes wrong, your biology betrays you. Adrenaline spikes, breathing shortens, logic collapses. In that moment, your body's trying to protect you, But your mind misinterprets that rush as urgency. You feel like you have to fix it right now. The more pressure you feel, the more impulsive your response becomes. And that's how panic builds problems that didn't exist. Psychologists call this amygdala hijack. It's when your emotional brain temporarily shuts down your rational one. That's why arguments escalate, investors panic sell, and leaders self-sabotage. They act before they think, then spend months cleaning up what a 5-minute pause could have prevented. Here's the lesson. In moments of pressure, don't trust speed, trust stillness. In 2008, when the global financial system started collapsing, Warren Buffett was flooded with calls. Everyone wanted to know what to do. Panic was the default. But Buffett did the opposite. He went quiet. He read. He waited. And when the chaos peaked, he calmly invested billions in companies everyone else had abandoned. That composure didn't come from genius. It came from habit. Buffett had trained his mind to pause before reacting. The author calls this habit creating cognitive space. It's the gap between what happens and what you do next. Inside that gap lives every wise decision you'll ever make. Here's how to build it. 1. Anchor your breath before your brain. The body leads the mind. When you slow your breath, you send a signal to the nervous system, we're safe. Try box breathing. Inhale 4 seconds, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. It's simple, but neuroscientists at Stanford confirm it lowers cortisol faster than meditation alone. 2. Ask, is this urgent or just uncomfortable? Most panic is discomfort pretending to be urgency. Write this question on a sticky note near your desk. It forces your brain to separate emotional noise from logical necessity. 90% of emergencies dissolve when examined under calm. 3. Delay public reaction. Never send an emotional email. Never post when angry. Never make business decisions inside adrenaline. Jeff Bezos uses what he calls Type 2 decisions, reversible, low-risk moves that can wait until the morning. The pause protects perspective. 4. Change your environment, not your explanation. When stress hits, don't explain it to yourself. Relocate yourself. Step outside, stretch, walk. Physical movement resets brain chemistry faster than cognitive reframing. The Stoics practice this through peregrinatio, walking meditation to regain control of emotion. 5. Practice strategic slowness. This doesn't mean procrastination, it means deliberate pacing. Before reacting, narrate the event in slow motion in your head. A client canceled. I feel angry. I'm about to reply. That simple narration inserts logic into emotion. It turns reaction into response. 6. Build rituals of silence. Most people say they don't have time to think. They have time to scroll. Start your day with 10 minutes of uninterrupted thought. No phone, no news, no input. Just you, a notebook, and a question. What matters most today? Oprah calls this her quiet intention moment. It's how she aligns action with purpose before the world starts demanding her attention. 7. Guard your attention like wealth. Every notification is a thief. Every open tab is a leak. Attention is the currency of clarity. Spend it wisely. Studies from the University of California show it takes 23 minutes to regain deep focus after a single interruption. That means one text can destroy an hour's worth of thinking. 8. Use micro pauses during conflict. When someone says something triggering, pause 1 second before replying. That second often saves relationships, careers, and reputations. Abraham Lincoln had a rule: when angry, write the letter. then never send it. His unsent letters archive is legendary. They were emotional release valves that prevented political wars. 9. Redefine calm as strength, not passivity. Society glamorizes hustle, but wisdom looks like stillness. Calm doesn't mean weak. It means strategic. A calm investor buys when others panic. A calm leader stabilizes chaos. A calm mind sees what frantic eyes miss. 10. Create decision oxygen. Just like your body needs oxygen to function, your mind needs space. If your schedule is packed with meetings, messages, and noise, your decisions suffocate. Schedule white space, 30 minutes daily with no agenda. That's where your next breakthrough hides. Let's ground this idea in one powerful story. In 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world was minutes from nuclear war. The U.S. military urged immediate retaliation, but President John F. Kennedy did something counterintuitive. He paused. He waited 13 hours before responding. That pause gave space for communication, and that space saved the planet. Panic would have destroyed millions. Patience preserved history. The same principle applies to your own life, just on a smaller scale. When something explodes, an argument, a mistake, a rejection, pause. You're not ignoring it. You're giving it oxygen. You're creating space for wisdom to enter. Because here's the truth. Calm doesn't come after the storm. Calm creates the way through it. Your next big breakthrough in business, in relationships, in finance won't come from grinding harder. It'll come from thinking better. And thinking better starts with giving your mind the respect it deserves. Time, silence, and space. So the next time you feel your heart racing and your hands tightening, say quietly, I don't need to fix this now. I need to think. That single sentence will save you from months of regret. And if this idea spoke to you, if it reminded you that speed without clarity is chaos, subscribe for more cinematic book wisdom that teaches you how to slow down to move faster. It sounds deceptively simple, almost too basic to matter. But this single question, what would actually help right now, can quiet the loudest mind and redirect the most chaotic day. The author calls it the clarity question, and it's one of the most powerful tools for emotional intelligence you'll ever learn. Here's why. When we're stressed, angry, or overwhelmed, our brain loves to dramatize. It tells big stories. Nothing's working. Everything's falling apart. But 99% of the time, the issue isn't everything. It's one small problem that feels bigger than it is because we've magnified it. Asking, what would actually help right now, shrinks the drama and restores perspective. It's a thinking reset. It moves your brain from catastrophe mode to strategy mode. Psychologists call this metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. It's the difference between drowning in emotion and directing it. Let's illustrate it. Imagine you're in a heated argument, your heart pounding, your mind racing to defend itself. If you pause and ask, what would actually help right now? You might realize it's not another comeback. It's a deep breath. It's silence. It's leaving the room for 5 minutes. Suddenly, you're not a prisoner of emotion. You're the pilot of it. This question applies everywhere, from business to burnout. When you're behind on goals and your brain starts saying, you're failing, stop and ask, what would actually help right now? Maybe it's writing the next line of the report, sending one email, or even taking a walk to reset focus. When you're exhausted and scrolling social media to relax, ask, is this helping? Probably not. Maybe what would help is 10 minutes of quiet or calling someone you trust. The author argues that asking this question consistently is what separates emotional maturity from emotional chaos. Because most people don't act, they react. They don't solve. They soothe. They chase temporary comfort instead of lasting clarity. Here's how to turn this question into your default tool for progress. 1. Use it in moments of pressure. When you feel overwhelmed, angry, or indecisive, pause. Ask it out loud. The phrasing matters. What would actually help right now? That word actually slices through illusion. It separates what feels good from what works. 2. Identify your go-to false fixes. We all have them. Things that feel helpful, but aren't. Scrolling, venting, shopping, overanalyzing, or numbing out. Make a list of your top 3 false fixes. Then, next time stress hits, catch yourself before you reach for them. Replace each one with something that truly supports your energy, like movement, water, journaling, or sleep. 3. Shift from intensity to direction. When emotions surge, your instinct is intensity. Do something, anything now. But intensity without direction burns out progress. The question centers you back into purpose. You stop reacting and start acting intentionally. 4. Ask the question in every context. At work, what would actually help me get unstuck on this task? In relationships, what would actually help us understand each other right now? In finances, what would actually help me feel more stable this month? Over time, this question rewires your problem-solving instinct from panic to presence. 5. Combine it with the one-step rule. Once you identify what helps, act within 60 seconds. No delay. Don't wait for motivation. It's a byproduct of momentum. Even micro-action, sending one message, standing up, drinking water, sends a neurological signal of progress. 6. Use it to replace rumination. When your thoughts start spiraling, don't argue with them, just ask the question. The human brain can't obsess and problem solve simultaneously. That's why this question short-circuits overthinking. It gives your attention a productive assignment. 7. Check your energy before your plan. Sometimes what helps isn't doing more, it's doing less. It's not pushing harder, it's pulling back. Oprah once said, "When you're tired, rest. Don't quit." The mind confuses exhaustion for failure. Asking what would actually help right now reminds you that recovery is productivity. 8. Turn the question outward. When someone you love is struggling, don't rush to fix them. Ask, what would actually help you right now? It shows empathy and gives them ownership over their healing. It turns you from rescuer to ally. 9. Practice it during success, not just stress. When things are going well, ask, what would actually help me keep this momentum? Maybe it's protecting your focus time, doubling down on a system that works, or expressing gratitude. This trains your brain to seek consistency, not chaos. 10. Keep a help log. Each night, jot down 3 answers to the question from your day. You'll begin to notice patterns. Maybe hydration helps more than coffee. Maybe stepping outside helps more than venting. Over time, you build a personal playbook for clarity. Let's bring this to life with a real story. In 2015, a young founder named Sarah was running a small startup that was failing. Her team was burned out, investors were impatient, and she hadn't slept properly in weeks. During one late-night breakdown, she stopped pacing and asked herself out loud, what would actually help right now? The answer wasn't another deck or email, it was sleep. She went home, rested, and came back with a clear head. The next morning, she pivoted her business model completely. The same company later became Spanex. That's the quiet power of this question. It doesn't give you magic, it gives you margin. It clears space for intuition to surface. Because what helps is rarely dramatic. It's often simple, small, and profoundly human. Breathe, pause, write, rest, decide, forgive. So here's your assignment. For the next 7 days, every time you feel frustrated, stuck, or scattered, ask it out loud. What would actually help right now? Then act on the first honest answer that comes. Not the comfortable one, the honest one. That's how awareness becomes wisdom. And if this chapter reminded you that clarity isn't complicated, it's just consistent, subscribe for more book wisdom that turns self-help into self-leadership and emotion into evolution. Here's a truth most people won't like to hear. Complaining is the most socially accepted form of self-sabotage. Oh, it feels innocent, but it slowly trains your brain to look for what's wrong instead of what's possible. Every complaint is a small withdrawal from your confidence account. The author says it bluntly. You can't build a powerful life while narrating your weakness. Complaining gives you temporary relief, like scratching a mosquito bite. It feels good for a second, but it keeps the irritation alive. The more you talk about what's broken, the less energy you have to fix it. Complaining turns you into a spectator of your own problems. The author's challenge? Replace every complaint with one useful action every single day. It doesn't have to be grand or heroic, just something that moves your life 1 inch forward. That's how you reclaim momentum. Here's the formula. Notice, name, neutralize, act. Notice when you're complaining, out loud or in your thoughts. Name it for what it is, emotional leakage, not leadership. Neutralize it with honesty. Okay, what can I actually control here? Act. Take one micro step toward improvement, no matter how small, because movement, not mood, creates progress. Think about it. When you complain about your job, does the job change? No. When you complain about your body, your bank account, your partner, do any of them improve? No. The only thing that changes is your energy level. It drops. Complaining kills the fuel you need to create solutions. Ray Dalio calls this radical responsibility. It's not about pretending things are fine, it's about turning frustration into data. When something upsets you, instead of venting, extract the lesson. What system failed? What expectation needs recalibrating? The minute you start thinking like that, you stop suffering and start engineering. In one of the book's most practical sections, the author writes, progress doesn't come from describing pain. It comes from directing it. That's the difference between people who change and people who chatter. Here's how to build your no complaining, just creating habit. 1. Catch the first sigh. Every complaint starts as a sigh, that tiny exhale that signals defeat. When you feel it, stop. Take one deep, intentional breath and shift your energy into problem-solving mode. 2. Replace the words, "this sucks," with "this shows." "This job sucks" becomes, "this shows me what kind of work drains me." "This client sucks" becomes, "this shows me what boundaries I need." Language reframes life. 3. Set a 24-hour complaint detox. Challenge yourself to go one full day without complaining, not even in your head. Write down each time you slip. You'll be shocked how often negativity sneaks in disguised as casual talk. By the end of the day, you'll realize awareness is 80% of progress. 4. Transform venting into verification. Before you complain to someone, ask yourself, am I seeking empathy or am I seeking excuse? If it's the second, stop. If it's the first, ask for support directly. Don't disguise need as negativity. 5. Use one-for-one substitution. Every time you complain, do one thing that counteracts it. Complain about traffic. Use that drive to listen to a podcast. Complain about being tired. Go to bed 30 minutes earlier. Complain about your finances. Track one expense or read one page of a finance book. Turn friction into fuel. The science backs this up. Neuroscientists at Stanford discovered that complaining for just 30 minutes a day physically shrinks the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for problem solving and creativity. Negativity literally rewires your mind for helplessness. But the opposite is also true. When you shift from complaining to creating, your brain releases dopamine, the motivation chemical. You start craving action the same way you once craved validation. And once you act, even in small ways, the cycle begins. Action, momentum, confidence, clarity, more action. It's a self-reinforcing loop, the good kind. Now, let's merge this idea with the final message of the book. Calm your emotions so your choices stay clear. Because taking action without calm is chaos. Staying calm without action is complacency. You need both. The author describes calm as mental posture. It's how you hold your mind when life pushes against it. You don't collapse under pressure, you bend and balance. Calm doesn't mean apathy. It means awareness without panic. In finance, Buffett models this perfectly. During crises, he reads while others react. In relationships, emotionally intelligent people listen while others explode. In leadership, calm thinkers pause when everyone else scrambles. Calm is not luck, it's training. Here's how to cultivate it. 1. Identify your emotional tells. Before you lose calm, your body whispers. Shoulders tighten, jaw clenches, breathing shortens. Learn your warning signs. They're the early sirens of overreaction. 2. Breathe to buy time. When emotions rise, time feels like it shrinks. Deep breathing stretches it back. One slow inhale and exhale can expand your reaction window from 1 second to 10. Enough space for wisdom to return. 3. Replace reactivity with rituals. Before meetings, take 2 deep breaths. Before replying to criticism, count to 5. Before major choices, take a 15-minute walk. These rituals train your nervous system to default to calm. 4. Reflect, don't repress. Suppression breeds explosions. Calm is about processing emotions, not denying them. Write, talk, or pray, but always release before reacting. 5. Detach identity from emotion. Don't say I'm angry, say I'm feeling anger. One word, feeling, reminds your brain it's temporary. You're the sky. Emotions are weather. 6. Audit your environment. If you're surrounded by chaos, noise, gossip, drama, your nervous system mirrors it. Protect your peace like you protect your passwords. Not everyone deserves access to your attention. Because here's the truth. You can't lead your life if you can't lead your emotions. The author ends with a simple but profound reminder. Success isn't about intensity, it's about stability. The people who win long-term aren't those who sprint hardest. They're the ones who can stay calm, focused, and consistent when everything else shakes. When you stop complaining, you reclaim your energy. When you calm your emotions, you reclaim your clarity. And when you combine both, you become unstoppable. Not because life got easier, but because you got steadier. So here's your final reflection. When something frustrates you this week, don't ask, "Why is this happening?" Ask, "What's one thing I can do right now that helps?" Then do it, calmly, clearly, and completely. Because that's the real mastery, acting without anger, thinking without chaos, moving without fear. And if this message gave you even one spark of awareness, subscribe to THK Review Books, where wisdom becomes wealth and calm becomes your new form of power.